Hollywood, love doesn't often last. We've seen it too many times. Couples fall for each other on movie sets, whisper promises in red carpet interviews, and then months later, headlines announce a bitter split. It's a place where romance tends to burn fast and die young. But every now and then, something different happens. Something quieter, stronger, something real. And that's where Sam Elliott's story begins. Now, if you know anything about Sam Elliott, you know he's not the type to chase the spotlight. With that deep, unmistakable voice, the kind that feels like a warm fire on a cold night, and that rugged look straight out of an old Western, Sam has been a fixture in American film for decades. He's played cowboys, mentors, tough men who don't say much, but when they speak, you listen. He's the kind of man who carries silence like it's sacred. So when a man like that decides to finally talk about love, the love of his life, you sit up and pay attention. At 74, Sam is finally pulling back the curtain. And what he shares is more than just a romance. It's a quiet testament to loyalty, to timing, and to holding on through every storm. Because for years, people whispered about it. Fans speculated. Tabloids asked questions. Was he still with her? Had they split? Why did they keep things so private? In the late 80s and early 90s, gossip columns ran pieces wondering if their marriage was for real. Some claimed they were just keeping up appearances. Others even hinted that she had moved on. But Sam never responded. He didn't chase headlines. He didn't make statements. He just kept showing up, doing the work, loving quietly, building a life far from the noise. And now he's ready to talk. Not because he needs attention, not because he's selling a book or promoting a movie, but because looking back, he realizes that the love he's held on to all these years, it's worth sharing. It's worth honoring. This isn't the kind of story with champagne and flashing lights. It's about patience. It's about weathering heartbreaks, waiting for the right person, and knowing when something is worth protecting. It's the kind of love that makes you believe again, even if you've been through your share of broken promises. So today, we're going to walk with Sam. From his earliest days in a working-class home, where he first dared to dream of a life his father didn't believe in, all the way to the moment he finally met the woman who would change everything. A woman who didn't just share his life, but shaped it. Because behind the quiet cowboy persona is a man who has loved deeply, lost greatly, and learned that the most powerful stories aren't always the loudest. They're the ones that last. And this one? It lasted over 40 years. Now let's go back to the beginning, to a young boy in Oregon holding on to a dream, and a father who thought he'd never make it. Because to understand the love story, first, you have to understand the man. Long before the fame, before the mustache became iconic, before that voice could command a room without raising its volume, Sam Elliott was just a kid growing up in a quiet corner of Oregon. Tall, lanky, and full of dreams that didn't quite fit into the world he was born into. He was born in Sacramento, California, in 1944, but it wasn't long before his family moved north to Portland. His roots, though, were Texan through and through. His parents had both grown up in El Paso. His father, Henry, worked in predator control for the government. His mother, Glynn, was a high school teacher and physical training instructor. They were hardworking people, proud, practical, and not the kind to put much faith in daydreams. From the time he was 9 years old, Sam knew exactly what he wanted. He wanted to be an actor. Not for the fame or the money, but because something inside him lit up every time he watched a movie. He didn't just want to play pretend, he wanted to tell stories that meant something. Stories that made people feel something. But in his house, that wasn't considered a real job. Not by his father. Henry Elliott was a man of few words, but when he spoke, it stuck. And one thing he made clear to Sam, over and over again, was that acting wasn't a path to a stable life. It was a fantasy, a waste of time. Henry believed in hard work, in reliable jobs, in providing. And no matter how much Sam tried to explain how deeply he felt about acting, his father just didn't see it. That tension between father and son wasn't just background noise. It shaped Sam. He once said that his father died thinking his son was throwing his life away. And when Henry passed away from a sudden heart attack, Sam was just 18 years old. That kind of loss, it carves something into a person. It leaves questions you never get to ask, conversations you never get to finish. It's the kind of pain that doesn't fade. It just settles in and travels with you. But Sam didn't fold under that grief. He used it. Quietly. Patiently. He went to the University of Oregon, tried to follow a path that might make his father proud. He studied English and psychology. Logical subjects. Safe choices. But the dream never left. It stayed tucked inside his chest, waiting for its moment. Eventually, he transferred to Clark College in Vancouver, Washington, where he finally stepped into the world of acting. He was cast in the college's production of Guys and Dolls, and when the curtain fell, a local newspaper wrote something that stuck with him. This young man should seriously consider acting as a career. It was the first time someone outside his own heart believed in that dream, and it changed everything. He packed his things, moved to Los Angeles, and got to work. Not glamorous work, not acting jobs at first. He worked construction during the day, hauling wood, pouring concrete, doing whatever it took to pay rent. And at night, he studied acting. Not just the mechanics, but the soul of it. He learned how to live inside a character, how to bring stillness to the screen. He learned how to listen, how to pause, how to make silence powerful. He wasn't chasing stardom. He was chasing something real, something honest. And then, like a whisper from fate, he landed his first movie role. It was barely a role at all. A nameless card player in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. No lines. No attention. But while most people wouldn't think twice about that moment, it meant something to Sam. Because on that very set, for the first time, he saw her. Catherine Ross. She was already a star, already known for her role in The Graduate. Sam was nobody back then. Just another guy in the background. He didn't approach her, didn't say a word, but he noticed her. And maybe she noticed him too. Who knows? They were on different paths then. But the seed was planted. And while Sam had no idea what the future held, he kept showing up, one small role after another. And with every audition, every hour on a construction site, every night in a rented apartment where dreams sometimes felt impossibly far away, he was building something. Quietly, steadily. Because for Sam Elliott, success was never about getting there fast. It was about getting there true. And just a few years later, in a twist of fate only Hollywood, or maybe life itself, could write, Sam would meet Catherine again. Not as a background extra, but as her co-star. That's where the real story begins. The story of two souls reconnecting after years apart, and the love that would stand the test of time. But before we dive into that, let's take a look at how Sam turned those small, quiet roles into something bigger, into something lasting, into a legacy. Sam Elliott's first movie role wasn't glamorous. It didn't come with red carpets or big speeches. In fact, you probably wouldn't even notice it unless someone pointed it out. The year was 1969, and the film was Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, one of the most iconic westerns of its time. Sam had no lines, no name, no real screen time. He was just card player number 2, tucked into a background scene during a poker game. But even the smallest moments can shift the course of a life. Because it was on that set where Sam first laid eyes on her, Catherine Ross. She was already a star, already known for her breakout performance in The Graduate. She had grace, intelligence, and the kind of quiet beauty that didn't beg for attention. It simply held it. Sam, by contrast, was just another working actor in the background, showing up, keeping his head down, and hoping for something more. He didn't speak to her. Didn't even try. All I could do was watch her come and go, he said years later. I was just another guy on the lot. Still, something about her stayed with him. In the years that followed, Sam continued to grind it out. He took job after job in television, often playing cowboys or soldiers or mysterious loners. Shows like Mission Impossible, Gunsmoke, and Hawaii Five-0 gave him steady work, but nothing that broke through. He wasn't famous, not yet, but he was building something solid. Brick by brick, he was proving himself. And though he never said it out loud, part of him still remembered that woman from the set, the one he never spoke to. Then, almost a decade later, something remarkable happened. In 1978, Sam was cast in a film called The Legacy. It was a horror movie shot in England, set in a moody old countryside estate, full of strange happenings and darker secrets. The script was interesting, sure, but what really caught Sam's attention was the name of his co-star, Catherine Ross. This time, he wouldn't be in the background. This time, they would share the screen. From the moment they met again, something was different. The timing was right. They were both older, wiser, and maybe a little more ready. Sam had grown into himself, a man with presence, not just potential. Catherine was in the middle of her own personal journey, coming off the end of her 4th marriage and trying to find steadiness in a world that rarely offered it. On set, their chemistry was immediate, but it wasn't the kind that burns fast and fades. It was slower, more certain. Sam once said, there was just something about her. She was calm, she was real. And in that calm, he found something he didn't know he'd been missing. Someone who saw him, not just as a working actor, but as a man. Off camera, they talked for hours. They connected over the quiet things. Childhood memories, heartbreaks, dreams that never quite lined up. And in the midst of a haunted movie set thousands of miles from home, they started writing the first pages of a love story that no one expected. There were no big declarations, no public displays, just shared moments, soft laughter, and an understanding that some connections don't need to be explained. They just are. By the time the filming ended, they were no longer just co-stars. They had found each other, truly, and they knew it. And maybe that's the beauty of their story. It didn't happen in a rush. It wasn't born out of flash or drama. It was slow, patient, and deeply rooted. It was two people meeting each other, not when they first crossed paths, but when they were finally ready. Hollywood didn't see it coming. In a world full of short-lived romances and broken promises, Sam and Catherine were quietly choosing something else. Something lasting. And as we'll see next, that choice, choosing love, choosing each other, would not only define Sam's personal life but would change the course of his entire career. Because just a few years later, during their honeymoon, Catherine would give him the push he needed, the encouragement that would lead to the biggest breakthrough of his life. She believed in him before the world ever did. And that made all the difference. Some love stories happen fast. They burn bright and fizzle out, like a firework in the night sky. But the real ones, the ones that last, tend to move differently. They take time. They take patience. They show up quietly, and they stay. That's the kind of love story Sam Elliott and Catherine Ross have lived. Their paths first crossed in 1969 on the set of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Catherine was already a star by then, known across America for her role in The Graduate. Sam, on the other hand, was just starting out, cast in a nameless background role, quietly trying to earn a place in a world that didn't yet see him. He never spoke to her. He watched her from a distance, admired her elegance, her quiet confidence, and then moved on with the rest of his day. It wasn't a moment that changed anything, not yet. But it was the beginning of something that neither of them could have known. Almost a decade later, in 1978, that spark from the past found its moment. They were cast together in a film called The Legacy, and this time, it was different. They weren't just two people on the same set. They were scene partners, equals. And something just clicked. There was no need for show or charm. The connection was there from the start, subtle, steady, and undeniable. Catherine had lived a lot of life by then. She'd been married 4 times, each relationship ending for different reasons, none of them quite the right fit. That kind of history can leave a person guarded, hesitant. But Sam never came in trying to fix anything. He simply met her where she was, with patience, with respect, and with a quiet strength that made her feel safe to be seen again. He once said, there was no pretense with her. None of that Hollywood stuff. She was real. That's what I loved. They took their time, no big headlines, no spotlight romance, just two people getting to know each other, gently building a life from the inside out. In 1984, they got married. That same year, their daughter Cleo was born. And though both Sam and Catherine had spent their careers in front of cameras, they made a conscious decision to keep their home life sacred. Simple. Out of reach from the noise of the industry. But love, especially the real kind, isn't just about the sweet parts. It's about how you weather the storms together. Early in their marriage, Sam was still fighting for the kind of role that would let him show the world who he really was. Then, just days into their honeymoon in Hawaii, the phone rang. A casting director was looking for someone to audition for a serious role in a new film called Mask. It was a powerful story, a real emotional piece about a boy born with a rare disorder, and the people in his life who loved him anyway. Sam hesitated. They had just gotten married. They were still unpacking their bags, still breathing in the newness of that chapter. But Catherine didn't blink. She told him, "You need to go. This could be the one." And she was right. Sam left their honeymoon early, flew back to audition, and landed the role. That decision changed the trajectory of his career. Mask wasn't just a film. It was a breakthrough. It showed the world what Sam could do beyond the rugged Western roles. It proved that beneath the mustache and the steady stare was a man capable of deep, emotional storytelling, and he wouldn't have taken that leap without her. That moment defined their dynamic. She believed in him even before the world did. She pushed him forward when he hesitated. She wasn't just his wife. She was his teammate, his anchor. But even in the years that followed, as Sam's career grew and their family settled into a quiet life in Malibu, things weren't always easy. There were times when the work pulled them in different directions. There were moments of tension, of distance, of wondering how they would make it through. But they always came back to the same place, each other. Sam once said in an interview, "It takes work. Real love isn't just feelings. It's commitment. You show up, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Catherine said something similar in a rare public comment. "We're not the same. We're different in a lot of ways, but we respect each other. We laugh. We give each other space. And we're still here." Through it all, the highs, the setbacks, the time apart, they stayed grounded in what they built together. Their daughter Cleo grew up in a home filled with art, with honesty, and with parents who chose each other every single day. Over 40 years have passed since they said, "I do," and their love remains one of the rarest kinds in Hollywood. Not because it's perfect, but because it's real. No headlines, no drama, just presence, just love. And when people ask Sam what his greatest accomplishment is, it's not the awards or the films or the voice that built a legacy. It's her. It's the life they built together, brick by brick, day by day. Because in the end, no role he ever played could come close to the one he lives every day, with Catherine Ross by his side. Some actors burn hot and fast. They show up, shine bright for a while, and then fade. But not Sam Elliott. His career didn't come in a flash. It was built like a country road, long, steady, and full of turns that only made the journey richer. After his breakout performance in Mask back in 1985, people finally saw what some of us had known for a long time. Sam wasn't just a cowboy type, he had depth. In Mask, he played a rough-edged biker who ends up being the soft place to land for a mother raising a son with a rare condition. That role let the world see his heart, not just his presence. And from there, the doors started opening. In Roadhouse, he played Wade Garrett, the aging barroom bouncer with wisdom behind his fists. He wasn't just muscle. He was the voice of reason, the man who'd seen too much and still kept going. It's one of those roles people remember because it wasn't flashy. It was honest. Then there were the war films, like We Were Soldiers, where he brought quiet strength to the battlefield, playing men who carried the weight of leadership, loss, and loyalty. And of course, the westerns. Sam didn't just play cowboys. He was the spirit of the West. Tombstone, The Quick and the Dead, The Shadow Riders. You could hand him a dusty coat, put a rifle in his hand, and he wouldn't even have to speak. You already knew who he was. But what made Sam Elliott special wasn't that he fit a mold. It's that, over time, he outgrew it. In 2017, he took on the lead role in The Hero, playing an aging Western film star named Lee Hayden, who's coming to terms with the life he built and the parts he lost along the way. There's a quiet scene in that movie where Lee sits alone in a booth, just staring ahead, trying to find the right words. That scene says more about Sam than most actors could say in 2 pages of dialogue, because that's what he's always done, said more with less, felt more in silence than most do with his speech. And then came A Star is Born in 2018. Sam played Bobby, the older brother to Bradley Cooper's character. A man who'd sacrificed more than he ever admitted. A man carrying resentment and love at the same time. He didn't have many scenes. But when he looked away from that truck, eyes glassy with pain, it broke something in people. He got an Oscar nomination for that role. It was long overdue. At that point, Sam was already in his 70s, but he wasn't slowing down. In 1883, the prequel to Yellowstone, he played Shea Brennan, a man grieving the loss of his family, but still leading settlers across a brutal, unforgiving landscape. That wasn't just a role. That was a masterclass. His performance won him the SAG Award for Best Actor in a television movie or limited series, and not because it was big or loud, but because it was true. And let's not forget his voice. That voice, deep, steady, unmistakable, became its own kind of legend. He voiced commercials for Dodge, narrated Super Bowl ads, and became the long-running voice of the "Beef It's What's for Dinner" campaign. You've probably heard him even if you didn't realize it. On Family Guy, American Dad, The Good Dinosaur, and more. His voice is part of the American soundscape. Familiar, trustworthy, timeless. But through all of that, the roles, the awards, the legacy, what stands out most is that Sam never let any of it change who he was. He didn't trade in his values for a bigger paycheck. He didn't chase every trend. He stayed grounded, kept his head down, and did the work. Over decades, he built something rare, a career full of integrity, where every role, every pause, every word mattered. When you've been around as long as Sam Elliott, the world tends to make up stories about you. And when people started noticing him walking with a limp, they didn't wait long to assume the worst. Some thought he was sick. Others were sure he had cancer. The rumors started picking up steam, especially after his role in The Hero, where he played an aging Western star dealing with a cancer diagnosis. That performance was so raw, so honest, people couldn't separate the character from the man. But here's the truth. Sam wasn't dying. He wasn't secretly fighting some terminal illness. He'd simply broken his foot. It was a buckle fracture. The kind of injury that happens when you've lived a full life, when you're not afraid to get your hands dirty or stay active long past the age when most people slow down. He also cracked his pinky toe. Nothing dramatic. No hidden tragedy. Just the body doing what bodies do after a certain point, reminding you that you're not invincible, and that it's okay to move a little slower. He wore a surgical boot for a while, walked with a limp, and kept showing up. He didn't ask for attention. He didn't explain it away. He just kept being Sam. Quiet, steady, present. And when the headlines didn't get the story right, he didn't correct them either. That's never been his way. He's not interested in playing to the public. His life has never belonged to the spotlight. It belongs to the people he loves, and the land he calls home. That home is a coastal ranch in Malibu. Nothing showy, nothing extravagant. Just open land, ocean air, and the kind of space where you can breathe without being seen. Sam and Catherine have lived there since the late 1970s. It's where they raised their daughter, Cleo. It's where they still ride horses, tend to the land, and live like two people who never let fame rewrite who they are. There's a garden out back. There's a porch where they sit in the evenings, watching the light change over the hills. Their home is filled with books, old photographs, music, and the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. It feels earned. Cleo, their daughter, grew up in that environment. She's a musician now, walking her own creative path without ever needing to chase the kind of fame her parents had. She once described her upbringing as peaceful, grounded, and honest. And you can tell that everything Sam built in his career was just a reflection of what he was building at home. It's not hard to picture their everyday life. Catherine in the kitchen with a mug of tea. Sam out back feeding the horses. Maybe the two of them sharing a slow afternoon, not saying much, just being near each other. That's the kind of love they've kept alive. Not by trying to make it perfect, but by making it real. Day by day. Chore by chore. Choice by choice. When people ask what keeps a marriage like that strong, Sam says it's simple. You do the work. You don't walk away when it gets hard. You learn when to speak and when to just listen. You give each other space and you find your way back when life pulls you apart. So no, Sam Elliott isn't sick. He's not fading. He's living exactly the way he always said he would. On his own terms, with the people he loves. Far from the noise. Closer to what matters. In Hollywood, where marriages often flash like headlines and fade just as fast, being with someone for over 40 years isn't just rare, it's almost impossible. But Sam Elliott never cared about what was typical in this business. He never wanted the kind of love that looked good from the outside. He wanted something real. Something that would last. And he found it in Catherine Ross. They've been together through decades of change, through careers that rose and quieted, through raising a daughter, through the kind of ordinary days that never make it into magazines but end up meaning everything. And through all of it, Sam has never hesitated to say it out loud. Catherine is the love of his life. He said it simply, without performance, without pretense. She's not just his wife, she's his partner, his steady place, the woman who stood beside him when nobody else was looking. When he talks about her, it's not with grand gestures or polished words. It's with the quiet certainty of a man who knows he got lucky. And more importantly, a man who worked to stay lucky. Because their love isn't built on the good days alone. It's been built on showing up when things were messy, on understanding when words failed, on choosing each other, even when life made it easier not to. Sam once said the secret to a long marriage isn't magic. It's just work. You commit, you stay, you figure it out together. And then you do it again the next day. Catherine shared that too. She said they don't agree on everything. They're different people, but they know how to give each other space. They know how to come back after an argument. And they never stopped laughing together. Maybe that's the real glue. Humor, respect, and the ability to see past the moment you're in. Their daughter Cleo has seen that kind of love firsthand. She said it shaped her more than anything else. It taught her that love doesn't mean being perfect, it means being real, being willing, being patient. In a world that pushes us toward fast answers and easy exits, her parents built something that held strong because they didn't take each other for granted. They worked for it. And those who've worked with Sam over the years say the same thing, that what he brings to a marriage is what he brings to a film set: consistency, humility, grace. He's not loud. He doesn't need the spotlight. He does his job, does it well, and carries himself with the kind of dignity that doesn't need to be explained. After more than 40 years together, Sam and Catherine's love has outlived trends, survived rumors, and stayed standing in a world that's constantly trying to tear things down. And that's what makes their story so powerful. It's not that it's flawless, it's that it's faithful. At this point in his life, Sam has played the hero, the cowboy, the mentor, the rebel. But when you strip all that away, when you take off the hat and the badge and the carefully written lines, you find a man who simply chose to love one woman every day for a lifetime. And that might just be his greatest role of all. So when people ask what Sam Elliott's legacy really is, they might mention the voice, the mustache, the roles that made him a household name. But if you ask him, he'll tell you without missing a beat. It's her. It's their life. Their love. The way they built it slow, kept it quiet, and never let it go. Because at the end of all the scripts, all the awards, all the years spent in front of a camera, the only thing that truly matters is who's still sitting beside you when the lights go out. And for Sam Elliott, that's Catherine Ross. Always has been, always will be. If you've stayed with us through this story, maybe it's because something in it felt close to home. Maybe it reminded you of someone you've loved for a long time, someone you've stood by through thick and thin. Or maybe it gave you hope that the kind of love that doesn't give up still exists. See, Sam Elliott's life isn't just a Hollywood success story. It's a reminder of something deeper. That real love isn't loud. It's not made for cameras or headlines. It's made in the everyday moments. Those quiet choices to stay, to forgive, to hold someone's hand when life gets hard. He didn't chase fame. He didn't need the world to see everything. He just kept showing up for the people he loved. And maybe that's the most powerful kind of legacy you can leave behind. Not how many movies you're in, not how many awards you win, but how well you loved. How faithfully you stayed. How deeply you cared, even when no one was looking. So if this story meant something to you, if it stirred a memory or made you feel just a little less alone in the way you've loved or been loved, don't let it end here. Reach out to someone who matters. Tell them what they mean to you, or simply sit beside them, quietly. Sometimes that says everything. And if you believe this world could use more stories like this, more stories about quiet strength, real commitment, and love that lasts, then we'd be honored to have you stick around. Like this video. Share it with someone who believes in love that endures. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to our channel. Not just to hear more stories, but to remind yourself, and maybe someone else, that in a noisy world, the most beautiful things are still found in the silence. Thanks for spending this time with us. Until next time, take care of yourself and take care of each other.